These are some of the most poisonous and most brutal plants in all of history. First up is the suicide plant. Whilst not being deadly by itself, the effect of this plant drives people to ending their own lives to escape the unimaginable pain. The Gimpy Gimpy, also known as the suicide plant, is a rare plant only commonly found in Queensland in Australia. The leaves of the plant consist of thousands of small needles to break off and inject a neurotoxin in your skin, whilst activating your pain receptors at the exact same time. And if that wasn't bad enough, as a last you from the glorified torture machine, they actively prevent the pain receptors from being turned off. According to victims, the pain was quote like being burned by hot acid and electrocuted at the same time, whilst others mentioned the pain lasting around several months or so. One man used the plant as toilet paper before, and the pain was so insufferable that he drove himself to shoot himself in his own head. But moving on, here's a fun question for you. How long do you think blisters usually last for? If you said a week, you'd be correct. With this information in mind, it's easy to see why the giant hogweed is so terrifying. You see, the burns and blisters that this plant causes remain on your skin for up to 7 years. The plants grow up to 8 feet tall and is commonly found in northern and western Europe. But as bad as that is, the white snake root is even worse. Imagine you're drinking a cold glass of milk, just like you normally would. And except this time, imagine you die a few hours later. And now imagine this happening with 1,000 people at the same time. Well, we don't have to imagine this, as it actually happened in Midwest America in the 19th century. Because this plant is so deadly that people died from drinking the milk of the animals that ate this exact same plant. It contains a mix of compounds known as trematol, which gets its name from the trembling that it actually causes if you ingest it. And even though you'd need to eat 0.5 of your body weight for it to have serious effects, it was a huge issue in Midwest America during the 19th century. Mass amounts of people were dying, but no one really knew why, but as it turns out, livestock were eating tons of the snake root themselves. So when people drank the milk from said livestock, there was a huge likelihood of them dying simply because they drank milk from the animals that had touched the plants. This is actually how Abraham Lincoln's mother died in 1818. Eventually doctors figured this out and the plant was removed from areas with livestock, which is why milk sickness is almost unheard of nowadays. But although it might have been unheard of nowadays, the same couldn't be said for the manchineel plant. Otherwise known as Manzala de la Muerte, or Little Apple of Death, this little fellow is crowned as the most poisonous tree in the entire world. Found in the tropical parts of America, every part of the tree, from the bark to the sap, is highly toxic. The tree's fruits are the most harmful part though, with even the smallest bite being able to cause extreme agony followed by death. But don't think you'll be safe by not eating this plant, because as it turns out, even standing near it when it rains is dangerous. Imagine you're Mr. Beast, locked on an island for 7 days with no escape, and suddenly you're setting up camp underneath a tree that is very poisonous. Wait, Mr. Beast, why the f did you do that? When rain falls on the tree, it causes the sap to drip down, and if it comes in contact with your skin, it can easily cause your skin to burn and blister. But if you thought the suicide plant from earlier wasn't cool enough, well, say hello to the suicide tree. Unlike the Logan Paul video you're probably thinking of, this beautiful green blob of goodness can easily kill you by stopping your heart once ingested. Interestingly enough, it's often used in both homicide and suicides, to the point where approximately 1 person would be found dead from the plant per week in the Indian state of Kerala. Or, on one specific YouTube video posted on December 2017. The plant is popular in homicide cases because it's difficult to detect in autopsies, and its taste is easy to mask with strong spices. So now you know how to kill someone. Take this moment to subscribe and think, I guess the YouTube videos are useful for something. But although this video might be useful, imagine you're on vacation in South America, and a man walks up to you and blows some powder on your face. You don't think much of it at the time, so you keep walking, but wake up a few hours later with no money in your bank and no recollection of what happened beforehand. Sounds scary, but this is actually a real scenario that often happens when people come in contact with the Brugmansia plant. It's a flowering plant that can be found all over the globe, but it's native to South America in particular. It gets its name from the shape of the trumpet-shaped flowers that hang from the tree, coming in a lovely range of colors such as white, orange, pink, and yellow. And to say the least, the plant can take you to a real interesting trip if ingested. There's a report recorded in Psychiatry and Clinical Neuroscience of a man who cut off his own tongue, followed by his down below after drinking a single cup of Brugmansia tea. It's also known to be used by scammers in some countries to take advantage of tourists by turning them into zombies that empty their bank accounts and have no recollection of the events, where they usually deliver the poison by blowing it at the victim's face. But as horrible as it is, the belladonna is actually even worse because it's the most toxic plant found in the Eastern Hemisphere. You see, both of the leaves and berries on this plant are extremely toxic, and eating them will result in a long list of side effects including blurred vision, dilated pupils, sensitivity to light, rashes, severe dry mouth, slurred speech, urination retention, constipation, confusion, hallucinations, convulsions. The list goes on. The berries pose a giant risk to the children as they look pretty tasty and apparently taste moderately sweet. But don't get too addicted to these because 5 of 10 of these suckers are enough to kill an actual adult, let alone a child. Oh yeah, and just one single leaf of the plant will also do the job, just so you know, for future reference. But in future, you should probably also note the aconite, which is also known as the wolfbane, is a plant from a buttercup family that contains large quantities of poison called alkaloid... what? Nuconatine? Yeah, whatever that is, which at one point was used by the people of Japan to make their arrows more deadly. For a more recent example of the use of this plant, we can look at Nazis in World War II. They used this plant to make their bullets more deadly. And I didn't study law in school, but to me that sounds like it isn't allowed, since they can't be doing that. But although they can't be doing that, the same could be said for castor oil. See, castor oil is a type of vegetable oil that comes from Ricinus communis. See, ricin, sometimes known as the infergal fig tree, is an African bush with a thick wood stem and crimson or dark leaves and is frequently covered in ricin, a very powerful deadly white powder. The drug causes nausea, stomach cramps, vomiting, internal bleeding, and kidney failure. It works by interrupting the chemical mechanisms that keep cells alive, meaning they die and the organs gradually fail under death occurrence. 5 of these beans would be enough to kill an adult and 1 for a kid. You see, castor oil is actually derived from the seeds of this plant, and I suddenly got the urge to poison a small child. And although I might have the urge to poison a small child, sometimes they'll do it themselves with the rosary pea. You see, the rosary pea are shiny scarlet red seeds with a black spot. They have other less common variants which can be found all throughout Africa, Asia, and Australia. Just one of these seeds can be lethal to both children and adults, which is why it's mind-bending to see that these seeds are used in bracelets, jewelry, and kids' toys outside of the US. Like, how do you get away with that? But by far, the most common and worst one is tobacco. And just when you thought a badly drawn animation video wasn't going to give you a kick in the ass, we're gonna on you smokers. Or in other words, any dipshit that has a vape pen on them right now. You see, by sheer numbers, tobacco is the most deadly plant in existence, claiming over 8 million victims yearly. You see, tobacco is known to cause over 80 different forms of cancer, but its highly addictive chemicals keep people coming back like it's a soft blanket and a hot cup of chocolate. The fuck are you doing? But anyway, that's all of the list. Hope you guys enjoy, and if you do, make sure to subscribe. It's completely free. And watch the video on screen right now. It was one of our first uploads. Different art style, but pretty cool. Right, bye-bye.